Christina Georgina Rossetti was an English poet from the 19th century who was born in London December 5, 1830, to Gabriel and Frances Rossetti. She wrote a variety of romantic, religious, and children's poems. She had one sister named Maria and two brothers, William and Dante. Christina was educated at home by her mother, who had her study classics, fairy tales, novels, and religious works. As a child, she lived next to a park which she visited regularly, and her love of nature is seen through her poems. Another Spring by Christina Rossetti, lines 9 through 16. If I might see another spring, I'd listen to the daylight birds that build their nest and pair and sing, nor wait for mateless nightingale. I'd listen to the lusty herds that ooze with lambs as white as snow. I'd find out music in the hail and all the winds that blow. Over the summer of 1845, Christina suffered a breakdown in her health, both mental and physical, which caused her to leave school. Years of depression and related illness seemed to follow. During this period, Christina and her mother and sister became deeply interested in the Anglo-Catholic movement that developed in the Church of England. The religious devotion came to play a major role in Christina's life and throughout her poetry. The love of Christ which passeth knowledge, lines 1 through 8. I bore with thee long weary days and nights, through many pangs of heart, through many tears. I bore with thee thy hardness, coldness, slights, for 33 years. Who else had dared for thee what I have dared? I plunged the depth most deep from bliss above. I not my flesh, I not my spirit spared. Give thou me love for love. At the age of 18, Christina became engaged to James Collinson. However, she broke it off when she found out that he became a Roman Catholic. Later in her 30s, she fell in love with Charles Cayley, but again, she broke it off because of religious differences. Some people believe that Christina's poem Remember was written for Charles Cayley during their engagement. Remember, lines 1 through 14. Remember me when I am gone away, gone far away into the silent land, when you can no more hold me by the hand, nor I have churned to go, yet churning stay. Remember me when no more, day by day, you tell me of a future that you planned. Only remember me, you understand. It will be late to console then, or pray, yet if you should forget me for a while, and afterwards remember, do not grieve, for if the darkness and corruption leave a vestige of the thoughts that I once had, better by far you should forget and smile, than that you should remember and be sad. When Christina's father's failing health and eyesight forced him into retirement in 1853, Christina and her mother attempted to support the family by starting a day school, but had to give it up after a year or so. Then in 1859, she became a voluntary worker at the St. Mary Magdalene Penitentiary in Highgate, supervising young reforming prostitutes and teaching them the habits of obedience, sobriety, and industry. Christina started writing at an early age, dating her poems back from 1842, mostly imitating her favorite poets. From 1847, she began experimenting with verse forms such as sonnets, hymns, ballads, and drawing narratives from the Bible, folk tales, and the lives of saints. Her early pieces often feature meditations on death and loss in the Romantic tradition. Her first volume of poetry, Verses, was published in 1847 at the expense of her grandfather. Her most famous collection, Goblin Market and Other Poems, appeared in 1862 when she was 31. It received widespread critical praise, establishing her as the main female poet of the time. Christina maintained a close circle of friends and correspondents and continued to write and publish for the rest of her life, primarily focusing on devotional writing and children's poetry. In 1892, Rosetta wrote The Face of the Deep, a book of devotional prose, and oversaw the production of a new and enlarged edition of Sing Song, published in 1893. In the later years of her life, Christina suffered from Graves' disease, diagnosed in 1872, suffering a nearly fatal attack. In 1893, she developed breast cancer, and though the tumor was removed, she suffered a reoccurrence in September 1894. She died the following year on the 29th of December, 1894, and was buried in Highgate Cemetery.